Welcome to the Hall podcast. We have with us our guest, Brother Greg Mitchell, International Representative for the UA, Ontario. Good evening, Greg. How are you?
Hi, Al. You're good yourself?
Good. Welcome to beautiful British Columbia. Thanks for coming to visit us here at the Hall podcast. We have a meeting this evening with our sprinkler fitters down in the hall, so we thought we'd take the opportunity to come and have you on the podcast. So how was your trip out?
Very good. Uneventful. I do appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak with the membership at any time, and also specifically appreciate the invite into this little interview with yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. So maybe tell us where you're from exactly.
Exactly in Ontario?
Yeah.
I guess I'm based out of Toronto. I live about 2.5 hours northwest of Toronto. Originally born and raised in Kitchener.
Kitchener, okay.
I served my apprenticeship there, I guess. So.
Okay. And I introduced you as an international representative, so I imagine to get to that position, you would have held a few other positions in the UA during your time. How long have you been a member, and what trade tickets do you have? And maybe tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific particular prerequisites for this position, but I started my trade in the apprenticeship in 1981. As a sprinkler fitter apprentice, and became a journey person. Started getting active in the local and so forth, mainly as a steward, health and safety rep. Got really interested in health and safety, and became an instructor for health and safety. Then became a part-time trade school instructor. Eventually was on the executive board and became the national training coordinator for sprinklers back in 1996, I believe. And in 2001, I ran for business agent, held that position for 6 years, and became the business manager at Local 853 in 2006.
Great. And then after that, onto your position that you have now?
Yeah, I think I've been in this position 2017, I believe.
Okay. And with your position comes some other responsibilities as well. It's they hang off your other credentials, I guess. So
you get a couple portfolios to go along with things to keep you busy. So I'm the rep for Ontario, but I'm also the energy, and that's primarily Ontario, but dealing with nuclear plants and so forth, and any forms of heavy energy, and sprinklers for Canada, national sprinklers rep for Canada.
Excellent. So being a sprinkler fitter and doing health and safety all these years and stuff, it's a pretty rough trade, sprinkler fitting. A lot of physical work, injuries. I mean, things have changed over time. So I guess you've seen some people go all the way through their apprenticeship to retirement and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, in fact, again, technology's changed, health and safety's changed. I was fortunate enough to come in at a time when Victaulic was around, and you were still screwing a lot of pipe, but it's not the big 8-inch and stuff. A lot of safety changes, and yes, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people and see a lot of people. In fact, I was just at Local 853's general membership meeting a couple weeks ago, and there was members there that was from the two previous locals prior to the mergers and so forth back in Local 379 that ceased to exist in around 1971. So there's members there from the 60s and stuff that I've known for several years. So it's always enjoyable with things like that.
Yeah, I guess, one of the things I know and see with the sprinkler industry is the changes in technology. I know we try to keep up with it as best as we can here. I guess you see quite a bit of that in Ontario, some of the changes.
Yeah, and again, it depends on the types of projects you got going and so forth. And, one of the things I've always said, I mean, when you look at technical changes, manufacturers and so forth, probably one of the biggest changes that we had come along was due to the computer and the fact of design and so forth, for sure. But, one of the things we have to do is make sure we stay on top of the technological changes, because our trade survives on emerging markets. And so we need to push legislators and so forth for building code changes. And the more we can make our product more marketable, the more feasible it is, and the more we can get the building code changes to require sprinklers in certain buildings and so forth. So it increases work for our membership.
I know during my time as a training coordinator, we were pushing inspect, test, and maintenance. And how do you see that affecting the trade?
Very much. We've actually got it in the agreement now, the inspection test, and there's some provisions in there, and we've got a really good foothold in that market now. And we've got some contractors coming on that are just straight line inspection, inspect, test, and maintenance that aren't even doing install work. So but it's certainly it's a great asset for our contractors and our members, our existing contractors, to keep that market in the inspection and test.
I know, through some of the technicians and us, in BC we use BC Waterworks, which is AWWA affiliated, and you use a different system in most of Ontario, correct?
Yeah, actually, we're having some. That's the time we're having quite a bit of conversations about that now in the whole piping industry, and we're having some issues with those different waterwork agencies, and
right.
So we're at a crossroads here right now.
Right, and cross connections, for those that don't know, it protects the public from the process, whether you're, building a certain, rims in a plant or any type of devices connected to potable water. So it's really important, right? Originally out of Wakerton and other places where we had these accidents happen. I mean, it's very important work, right?
Well, it is, and it's surprising you say Wakerton. It's probably about 20 minutes from where I live right now, so it's always on my mind and remembering that. And it was quite a tragedy back there, and it caused a lot of changes that needed to be done. So the main thing here is to make sure that, when it comes to certification and so forth, and all this, it's not about keeping people from doing certain occupations or skill sets. It's about making sure that the people that are performing these are qualified to do the project.
Right. So, I mean, in BC, obviously, we're on a fault line here where, we always talk about the big Quaker that's coming. So we have a lot of seismic requirements in the code for sprinklers here, and I know it's a lot different in Manitoba and other places, right? So it's a pretty technical, the sway bracing and stuff that we have to do here in BC. It's a pretty fun trade. I mean, the guys that are good at it, they really enjoy it, right?
Yeah, it is. And again, you mentioned seismic bracing. I remember back when I was, instructing and so forth, and I was taking courses on that, and are we ever going to use that up here? And we're actually even in Ontario. I mean, if you look at the seismic mapping in North America, and you see the different zones and so forth, all our hospitals, new builds and stuff like that in Ontario are seismic braced now. That's a requirement.
So, I mean, one question that I thought about asking is because, there's a lot of rumors around. Is it true that you got into sprinklers because you didn't need to use a ladder?
Well,
the guest probably can't tell that because you're sitting down,
Yeah.
But how tall are you?
I'm 6'7". In a pinch, if I have to, I can actually, on a normal 8-foot ceiling, I can change a head without actually having to get a ladder.
So head of the
it's a bit
service
of a reach, but I can do that.
Head of the service department for sure. Yeah,
You wouldn't want to be in a scissor lift with me though, because it depends who's operating, where we're stopping.
that's right. Yeah, certainly not at the same floor for sure. Yeah. Maybe I could ask you some questions. You and I have known each other for quite a long time, and we've had the pleasure of being in the bargaining room together. So maybe could you talk to us a little bit about the bargaining process with the sprinkler industry and some of the stuff that we deal with at the bargaining table?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a little bit unique in the sense that it is a national agreement, and the way it's set up. Obviously, UA selects its own bargaining committee on our side of the table, and the Canadian Automatic Sprinkler Association, referred to as CASA, they select their side. They have a process going through to select their members. We do on ours, and generally on ours we have our international reps. The Canadian director of Canadian Affairs, who currently is Brother Terry Snooks, would assign the international reps in Canada to it as well that have territory, as well as the administrative assistant, general president, and the manager from each local across Canada that has jurisdiction underneath the National Sprinkler Road Agreement. When it comes to our side of the table. They have another process on their side, which is, I know the process, but I won't go into that. But anyways, we after notice to bargain, we get together and we got to try and find a time that we can all from across the country get together and so forth. And I personally believe the unique thing about our agreement is that because we bargain nationally, I believe this agreement is done well for all the members across the country at different times or another, and I don't think there's anybody that's not benefited from the economy doing better in another part of the country, and I really do believe that, and the contractors understand that as well. And so we strive to make sure that nobody's left behind, and we bring everybody along in the bargaining process. And the other unique thing is I think we've always been able to it gets a little bit heated at times and so forth, and there's some differences, and sometimes it drags on and drags out and so forth. But at the end of the day, we've always been able to, as an industry, as a group, the UA and CASA come to a deal at the end of the day on our own. And so it's an experience, a really good experience.
Yeah, I've enjoyed my time there. Like you said, at times there's some great debates that happen in regards to different things, but it's always a time well spent. And if we can come out with a proper agreement for the members, I think it's one of the most rewarding things we do.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'll move on to. I know you're a little bit of an outdoorsman, so I've had to listen through a bunch of your stories over the days. So. You hunt and you fish. Maybe tell me a little bit about what's your favorite hobby to do outside of bargaining.
Well, actually, hunting would be my number one favorite. I do big game. It's a lot of water. Well, not a lot. I don't get much opportunity, unfortunately. The problem is we have in Ontario is our seasons change because of the availability of different game. But I do enjoy big game hunting and upland bird. I do enjoy fishing and ATVing. It's pretty well.
Yeah, ATVing. Yeah, I know you also have a new RV that you didn't get to use for a while. Sat in the driveway because you were too busy working. So, now, what else? What else do you see upcoming here? We have our 125th anniversary here in the Canadian Conference in Vancouver. I guess you'll be a big part of that with the Canadian office, and I know you've been a big part of our negotiations here for the sprinkler industry, and we have some. That's why you're here this evening. So what do you see coming up as far as issues that are in front of you at the national office, and what are your big projects right now you're working on?
We've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. We've got to make sure we keep ahead of the curve on this. Training is number one, well, I don't want to say number one. Training and recruitment and organizing. We got to keep on top of all that. Obviously, I'm assuming and taking maybe for granted, but we have to make sure we maintain representation of our members. But in order to do that, we must remain strong, and that's organizing, training, retention, and recruitment. Not necessarily in that order, but recruitment, retention, and training, and so forth. There's a lot of work coming up, and of course all the changing industry out there. I mean, in Ontario, I saw the demise of the heavy industrial automotive industry went down. It's coming back now, but we shifted gears in between. We made sure that we got onto markets that new markets that were there for residential and high rise. The condominium industry in Toronto and the outlying areas is phenomenal growth, but we got to make sure we're able to capture all the market coming forward with all the battery plants and the chip plants.
There's been a lot of announcements lately in regards to those types of jobs, and some of the meetings I've attended with the chip plants in the States that are happening, and recruitment's a big deal for us. So if you're talking to a young guy about getting into the piping industry and specifically getting into sprinklers, what would you say to the young girl or guy and say, how would you encourage them to come into the sprinkler industry?
Well, I don't know if I'd specifically try and talk them into sprinklers. I try to talk them into UA piping trade. I've always considered myself, from the moment I got in the sprinkler trade, I considered myself a UA member, not specifically a UA Sprinkler Fitter. I'm very proud of my trade. I'm very proud of my local union, my home local. But I would want the individual to look at the different options in front of them within the UA and pick one that was right for them, and perhaps they may change partway through it. But most important, I would try to, whenever I see an apprentice, I try to instill upon them that, whether it's a 5-year apprenticeship, a 4-year apprenticeship, or wherever you are in that, don't let your training cease at the completion of your apprenticeship. Journeyman upgrade training, health and safety training, and different management course and so forth. Always strive to keep going. The opportunities are endless. Becoming in the UA is the start of it. The opportunities are endless within the trade.
What I'll ask you next is our friend Steve Steele. He's working on a project that's pretty important to the sprinkler industry right now. The Journeyman Training and Apprenticeship Committees across the country have been asked. There's an anniversary. Could you maybe tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the National Sprinkler Industry GTAC, Joint Training Apprenticeship Committee, has celebrated its 50th anniversary since its existence. And Steve's grabbed a hold of that and run with it very well. He's been actually doing a lot of research on the history of the entire sprinkler industry in Canada, as far as specifically within the union side of the locals and so forth, and the history of the locals and the evolving of it. And Steve's really done a great job on that, and still looking for more research, or for information, I should say, on that. And yeah, it's. I thought I knew quite a bit about the history of it because you can see the gray hair,
Yeah.
but Steve's unearthed some stuff I wasn't aware of either, so it's pretty interesting.
So yeah, I'd encourage anybody watching the podcast, if you have any historical information or pictures of the sprinkler industry through your family and friends, please pass it on and give us a copy so that
Absolutely.
we can send it off to Steve. Okay, well, we don't have much time left here this evening, so is there anything you want to say in parting? I mean, there's a couple other rumors about you, but I probably won't get into those this evening. So,
well, I just want to say, it's really a pleasure coming out here. I haven't been out here for some time, and I mean, no matter where I go across the country, seeing UA members coming to the halls and seeing what they've done with your training centers, what you guys have done here with this is phenomenal. And I just, really appreciate the opportunity to come in and speak with you, and looking forward to continue working with you in the future.
yeah, my pleasure, brother. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Al.
Okay, thank you for watching the Hall podcast. Please like and subscribe, and forward it on to one of our other members or one of the brothers and sisters from another local, and have a good evening.